Greetings pimps. This idea was brought upon me while responding to a comment earlier this fine evening. As voluntarists we deal with endless streams of emotion and authority-based non-arguments from statists and supposed anarchists alike. Since I already made a video pertaining to this, I will not go in depth as to why most ANCAPs and ANCOMs, for example, cannot logically argue against the existence of the state. However, shortly put, the only way to do so is to utilize UPB in the context of debate. And since it cannot be logically argued against in the context of debate without the self-detonation of the supposed argument against it, we can instantly conclude that the existence of the state is objectively immoral no matter what. The only supposed arguments against this either self-detonate, as said, or are appeals to emotion or authority, thus not arguments at all. Going on and on about self-ownership or about how mere workers need to own everything is all well and good, but at the end of the day without UPB your argument against the state is just as good as the so-called arguments in favor of its existence, so non-existent. The only way to argue logically is to reduce said action down to moral, immoral, or null using UPB. Of course, this is similar to mathematics where, in the context of debate, math is based in logic. Such as using math to prove the earth is round, in the context of debate. This is akin to using UPB to prove murder is objectively immoral, in the context of debate. It should not need to be said that, in the context of debate, is vastly different from in the context of the universe. As arguing in the context of the universe is useless, as in that context none of these words you are hearing have real meaning or value, so to speak, thus no argument could be made in any manner either way. Now we must go over a somewhat funny fact. That most people do not understand that emotion and/or authority does not equal logic. Ever. When you list a million bad things you think will happen if the state does not exist or if we don't have gun control, or whatever law you think is necessary, you are not using logic, you are using non-argument appeals to emotion. A trillion bad things could happen every second without the state existing, and that would still not be a valid logical argument in favor of the state's existence. Every single person could become a victim of gun violence this next minute and it's still not a valid logical argument in favor of any law whatsoever. Now, the real kicker here ends up being appeals to authority, which most people assume is just saying I am right because I or someone else said so. Which is part of it, yes, but most of it is people who list off statistics and factoids or definitions. Just because you toss in a stat doesn't mean you suddenly make controlling people moral or null. Bringing up that white countries with gun control have less gun crime than the USA is not an argument from logic but in fact a non-argument appeal to authority and also emotion at the end of it. People love writing thesis-length diatribes about stats and percentages when their entire so-called argument still boils down to, bad thing happened so we need state. This can be assigned to any situation where someone is trying to assert what should be done, not just objective morality. This, of course, leads to the fact that, outside of UPB and objective morals, most arguments are in fact not arguments at all but just appealers to emotion and authority and fighting with each other. This, hilariously enough, means that most debates between statists and non-statists as well as statists versus statists and non-statists versus non-statists are illogical infighting. So when you see ANCAPs and ANCOMs debating you can now realize it is all clowns infighting. Not 100% of the time but so near it that it might as well be. Remember this the next time someone thinks spewing statistics or peer-reviewed research at you means they are using logic because it's an appeal to the authority of the peer reviewers, not logic. This is not to say that peer reviews are all terrible. While I am aware of the detriments of peer review, this does not mean they are all false or evil or anything, simply that they are non-argument appeals to the authority of the reviewers instead of logic. At the end of the day, almost no one is capable of understanding such a thing without having it explained to them, thus I made this video. All your favorite debaters regardless of ideology do not understand this, thus all their so-called debates are just pathetic infighting based nowhere in logic. Anyways pimps, I hope you enjoyed, we out.